The information provided in this video is for educational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Please consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise routine, or lifestyle. The creators of this presentation are not doctors or registered dietitians. Picture this. It's January 1st. You and your husband, your boyfriend, your partner, you both stand in front of the mirror full of resolve. This is the year. You're going to do it together. You buy the matching workout gear, you clear the pantry of junk food, and you embark on the exact same mission. Same diet, same workouts, same goal. Fast forward 30 days. He steps on the scale, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He's down 10 pounds. His pants are looser, he's sleeping better, and he casually mentions he might need a new belt. You, on the other hand, step on the scale with dread. You've been militant. You've resisted the office donuts, you've sweated through every single spin class, you've drank enough water to fill a swimming pool. And the number staring back at you? It's moved maybe 2 pounds. Maybe. And you're not even sure if that's just because you skipped your morning coffee. If that story hits a little too close to home, you are not alone. This isn't just a feeling. It's a frustrating, infuriating, and deeply common reality for millions of couples across America. It's the silent question that hangs in the air. Why does it seem so much easier for him? Why does he just have to think about cutting out beer for a week to see results, while you have to fight a multi-front war against cravings, hormones, and a metabolism that seems to have the emergency brake permanently engaged? The answer is simple, yet revolutionary. You've been lied to. Not maliciously, but you've been sold a one-size-fits-all myth in a world that is anything but. The diet industry, the fitness magazines, the gym influencers, they often present weight loss as a simple equation of calories in versus calories out. A universal law that should apply to everyone equally. But it doesn't, because the biological, hormonal, and even psychological landscapes of men and women are as different as night and day. In this video, we are going to pull back the curtain on this fundamental difference. We're not offering you another fad diet or a 30-day shred that ignores your basic biology. We are going to arm you with knowledge. We're diving deep into the science, the real evidence-based reasons why men and women lose weight differently. We will explore the hormonal heavyweight champions, testosterone, which gives men a massive metabolic advantage from the starting line, versus the intricate, cyclical dance of estrogen and progesterone in women, which can turn weight management into a monthly moving target. We're going to break down why men are built like furnaces and women are built like, well, incredibly efficient energy-storing machines, and why that's actually a biological superpower if you know how to use it. You'll finally understand why he loses the beer belly first, while you're battling the fat on your hips and thighs. And spoiler alert, it has nothing to do with willpower and everything to do with evolutionary biology, designed to protect and preserve life. We'll even dissect the mental game, how stress, sleep, and emotional triggers affect your cravings and your body's willingness to let go of weight, and why those triggers can be drastically different between the sexes. By the end of this presentation, the frustration you feel will be replaced with understanding. The confusion will be replaced with a clear strategy. You will stop comparing your journey to his, because you'll realize you're not even running the same race. You'll have a powerful science-backed roadmap tailored to your body, so you can finally stop fighting against your biology and start working with it to achieve sustainable, lasting results. So let's get into it. Let's start with the single biggest factor, the one that sets the stage for everything else: metabolism. Think of your metabolism as the engine in your car. It's the system that burns fuel, calories, to keep everything running, from your heartbeat to your brain function to your ability to walk to the fridge. Now, from the moment they're built, men are typically given a V8 engine. It's big, it's powerful, and it burns a lot of fuel just by idling. Women, on the other hand, are often equipped with a highly efficient, fuel-sipping 4-cylinder engine. It's designed for endurance and preservation. It does its job beautifully, but it simply doesn't require as much gas to run. This idling speed is what scientists call your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. It's the number of calories your body burns at complete rest, if you were to just lie in bed all day. And this is where the first major gap appears. On average, men have a higher BMR than women. It's not fair, it's just physiology. But why? 2 primary reasons: muscle mass and body size. From puberty onward, the hormone testosterone gives men a biological nudge to build and maintain more lean muscle mass than women. And muscle is metabolically active tissue. A pound of muscle is like a tiny little furnace inside your body, burning calories 24/7, even while you sleep. A pound of fat, by contrast, is more like a storage unit. It just sits there using very little energy. So, because men naturally carry more of this furnace-like muscle, their baseline calorie burn is significantly higher. Let's put that in real-world numbers. A 40-year-old man who is 5 feet 10 inches and weighs 190 pounds might have a BMR of around 1,850 calories. A 40-year-old woman who is 5 feet 4 inches and weighs 160 pounds might have a BMR of about 1,400 calories. That's a 450 calorie difference before either of them even gets out of bed. That's the equivalent of a bagel with cream cheese, or a decent-sized slice of pizza, that he gets to eat every single day just to maintain his weight that she doesn't. This is the hidden metabolic handicap that explains so much of the initial frustration. When that couple we talked about starts their diet and both cut their intake to, say, 1,800 calories a day, the man is immediately in a significant calorie deficit. His body starts pulling from its reserves, and the weight comes off quickly. For the woman, eating 1,800 calories might be only slightly below her total daily energy expenditure, leading to a much slower, more gradual weight loss that can feel discouraging. It's not a failure of her effort. It's a simple matter of metabolic math. So what's the solution? Do women just have to accept this and eat drastically less forever? Absolutely not. The first, most powerful secret is this: you can upgrade your engine. While you can't change your genetics or your bone structure, you absolutely can change your body composition. The key is to build more of that metabolically active muscle tissue. This is why strength training is not just an option for women who want to lose weight. It is a non-negotiable necessity. Lifting weights, whether it's dumbbells, kettlebells, or your own body weight, is the signal that tells your body to build and maintain those little calorie-burning furnaces. Over time, by increasing your muscle mass, you can effectively raise your BMR, closing that metabolic gap. You're not just burning calories during the workout. You're building a bigger, more powerful engine that burns more fuel all day long. You stop being a fuel-efficient sedan and start becoming more of a performance vehicle. For the men watching, this metabolic advantage is great, but it can also be a trap. Because weight can come off more easily at the beginning, it can lead to a false sense of security. It can mask poor nutritional habits. You might be able to get away with eating processed foods and still lose weight initially, but that V8 engine still needs high-quality fuel to run well long-term. Relying solely on your faster metabolism without focusing on the quality of your food is a recipe for hitting a hard plateau, losing muscle instead of fat, and feeling tired and run down, even as the scale goes down. Your advantage is a head start, not a free pass. Understanding this fundamental difference in your metabolic engine is the first step to reclaiming control. It's about shifting the goal from simply eating less to building a more powerful body. For women, it's a strategic pivot to strength. For men, it's a call to respect the machine and fuel it properly. But metabolism is only one piece of the puzzle. The next, and arguably more complex, factor is the one that truly dictates the rules of the game: hormones. And this is where the differences between men and women become even more profound. If metabolism is the engine of the body, hormones are the master puppeteers, pulling the strings on everything from your mood and energy to where your body decides to store fat. They are the silent, invisible chemical messengers that dictate the very rules of weight loss, and their behavior is wildly different between men and women. For men, the hormonal landscape is dominated by one key player: testosterone. Think of testosterone as the body's general contractor. Its primary job is to build and maintain. It's responsible for increasing muscle mass, strengthening bones, and ensuring a healthy libido. When it comes to weight loss, this is a massive built-in advantage. Why? Because muscle is metabolically active tissue. The more lean muscle a man has, the more calories his body burns at rest. It's like having a V8 engine versus a 4-cylinder. It just naturally burns more fuel, even when it's idling. Higher testosterone levels make it significantly easier for men to pack on that calorie-torching muscle in the gym, which in turn accelerates fat loss. It also influences fat distribution, generally encouraging fat to be stored around the organs, what we call visceral fat, rather than under the skin. While this type of fat is more dangerous for health, it's also often more metabolically active and easier to lose in the initial stages of a diet compared to the stubborn subcutaneous fat. Of course, as men in the US age, and with lifestyle factors like poor sleep, stress, and diet, testosterone levels can decline. This is when many men start to see that classic dad bod emerge: a loss of muscle, an increase in belly fat, and a general feeling of fatigue. Their hormonal advantage begins to wane. Now, if the male hormonal system is a steady, predictable rhythm, The female system is a complex, dynamic symphony, with multiple instruments rising and falling in a monthly cycle. The two main conductors of this orchestra are estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is the star of the show. From a biological and evolutionary standpoint, its primary directive is to prepare the body for a potential pregnancy. And to do that, it needs to ensure there's enough stored energy. So, estrogen directs the body to store fat, specifically in the hips, thighs, and buttocks. This is subcutaneous fat, and its evolution's emergency savings account for nourishing a new life. This is not a flaw. It's a feature of female biology designed for the survival of our species. But in modern America, where survival isn't about famine but about fitting into last year's genes, this biological programming can feel like a curse. The body is literally hardwired to hold onto this fat more tenaciously. Then there's progesterone, which takes center stage in the second half of the menstrual cycle. Progesterone is the hormone that can make weight loss feel like an impossible uphill battle. It can increase appetite and most famously trigger cravings. Ever wondered why you or your partner suddenly craves chocolate, ice cream, or a bag of salty chips in the week before a period? You can thank progesterone. It can cause a slight drop in the brain chemical serotonin, our feel-good neurotransmitter. The brain, seeking a quick fix, sends out a powerful signal for simple carbs and sugary fats, which provide a temporary serotonin boost. Progesterone also causes water retention, leading to bloating and a temporary jump on the scale. For a woman who has been eating clean and working out all week, seeing that number go up can be incredibly demoralizing, even if it's just water weight. This monthly hormonal fluctuation creates two very different experiences within a single month. The first half of the cycle, the follicular phase, is often a woman's golden window for weight loss. Estrogen is on the rise, which can improve insulin sensitivity, meaning the body is better at using carbohydrates for energy instead of storing them as fat. Energy levels are typically higher, and appetite is more manageable. This is the time when workouts feel great and sticking to a diet feels easier. But then comes the second half, the luteal phase. As progesterone rises, everything changes. Insulin sensitivity can decrease, making the body more prone to storing fat. The core body temperature rises slightly, which technically burns a few more calories, but this is often completely negated by the powerful cravings and increased appetite that come with it. Fatigue sets in, making a trip to the gym feel like climbing Mount Everest. This isn't about a lack of willpower. It's a tangible physiological shift. A woman is literally fighting against a hormonal current that is encouraging her to eat more and move less. For men, the hormonal environment is relatively stable day to day. For women, it's a moving target, and trying to apply a rigid, one-size-fits-all diet plan across the entire month is a recipe for frustration and failure. But the hormonal story doesn't end with sex hormones. There's another powerful player that affects both men and women, but its impact is often amplified by the female hormonal cycle: cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone. In short bursts, it's a lifesaver. It's the fight-or-flight response that floods your body with energy to escape danger. The problem is, in our chronically stressed 24/7 American culture, the danger isn't a saber-toothed tiger. It's a looming work deadline, a traffic jam, or financial anxiety. Our cortisol taps are stuck in the on position, and chronic high cortisol is devastating for weight loss. It signals to the body that times are tough, and it needs to store energy. And its favorite place to store that energy is deep in the abdomen as visceral belly fat. Some studies suggest that women, particularly when estrogen levels are fluctuating, can have a more pronounced cortisol response to stress. This stress not only promotes fat storage but also drives cravings for so-called comfort foods, those high-fat, high-sugar combinations that provide a temporary dopamine hit and soothe the stressed-out brain. Finally, we have to talk about the gatekeepers of hunger itself: ghrelin and leptin. Think of them as the gas and brake pedals for your appetite. Ghrelin, produced in the stomach, is the gas pedal. It screams, "I'm hungry, go eat." Leptin, produced by your fat cells, is the brake. It tells your brain, "We're full, we have enough energy, you can stop eating now." When you go on a diet and start losing fat, your body panics, thinks a famine is coming. So, your fat cells produce less leptin, meaning the brake pedal gets weaker. At the same time, your stomach cranks up the ghrelin, slamming on the gas pedal. You become hungrier and less satisfied by the food you do eat. Here's the crucial difference. Research has shown that women experience a more dramatic drop in leptin and a greater resistance to its effects when they lose weight compared to men. Their body's stop signal becomes much, much weaker. Their bodies fight back against weight loss harder, This, combined with the monthly hormonal roller coaster of the menstrual cycle, which can also disrupt these signals, means women are often battling a much more intense sense of hunger and dissatisfaction when dieting than their male counterparts. It's a biological double whammy. So, we have men armed with muscle-building testosterone on a stable hormonal platform, and we have women navigating a complex cyclical system designed to store fat, a system that makes them more susceptible to cravings, water retention, and the hunger-inducing effects of dieting itself. The internal hormonal environment sets a very different stage for each gender. But this is only what's happening inside our bodies. The battle for weight loss is also fought in the mind, and in the aisles of our grocery stores, and at our dinner tables. The psychological and societal pressures surrounding weight are a whole other battlefield, with entirely different rules of engagement for men and women. For women, this battle often starts in childhood. It's whispered from the pages of magazines in the grocery store checkout line, the ones with headlines screaming about getting a bikini body in 10 days, right next to the candy bars. It's molded into the impossible proportions of the dolls they play with. It's a message absorbed through cultural osmosis. Your body is a project. It is something to be managed, controlled, and, most importantly, shrunk. From a young age, thinness is presented not just as a health metric, but as a form of social currency. It's equated with discipline, with being good, and ultimately with being worthy of love and acceptance. This creates a psychological state that can feel like living in a panopticon, that theoretical prison where you can be watched at any moment, so you internalize the guard. Women learn to be their own harshest wardens. Every meal becomes a negotiation. Every dessert is a potential transgression, followed by guilt. An entire vocabulary is built around this surveillance. I was so bad today I had a piece of cake. I need to be good this week. I'm watching my figure. Notice the language. It's not about fueling the body or enjoying food. It's about morality and observation. Food is divided into two camps, good and evil. A salad is virtuous. A brownie is a sin. This internal monologue is exhausting. It's a constant low-grade hum of anxiety, a calculator always running in the back of the mind, tallying calories, carbs, and failures. It is a mental load that most men simply do not carry. For men, the societal pressure is shaped very differently. It's less about being thin and more about not being soft. The ideal has long been one of strength, of presence, of taking up space. For decades, a little extra weight on a man wasn't just tolerated. It was often seen as a sign of success and stability. The term dad bod entered our lexicon for a reason. It describes a physique that is seen as comfortable, non-threatening, and endearing. A man with a bit of a belly is a provider. He's enjoying the fruits of his labor. A woman with the exact same body composition is often judged as having let herself go. But this landscape is shifting dramatically. The rise of the superhero movie era has chiseled a new, almost unattainable ideal into the male psyche. It's not enough to just be strong anymore. The pressure is now to be shredded, jacked, ripped. It's a very specific look. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, visible abs, and an extremely low body fat percentage. This has created a new kind of pressure, but the male response to it is fundamentally different, dictated by a powerful unwritten rule of masculinity. You do not talk about your insecurities, especially not about your body. A woman might openly discuss her diet with friends, share weight loss tips, and commiserate over feeling bloated. This shared experience, while often toxic, is at least a communal one. For men, the struggle is almost always a silent one. He might be secretly counting macros on an app, researching intermittent fasting until 2 a.m., or punishing himself in the gym, but he's unlikely to discuss his body dysmorphia with his buddies. The fear of being seen as vain or worse, weak is a powerful silencer. The weight loss journey for many men is a lonely one, a private war fought without allies, which makes the psychological toll uniquely isolating. You can see these unwritten rules play out in the simplest social settings. Picture a group of friends at a restaurant. A woman orders a grilled chicken salad and a water. No one bats an eye. The assumption is she's being health conscious. She's being good. A man at the same table orders a double bacon cheeseburger and a large beer. Again, no one bats an eye. He's a guy enjoying a hearty meal. Now let's flip the script. The woman orders the double bacon cheeseburger. There's a subtle shift. She might feel the need to justify it. It's my cheat day. As if her indulgence requires an explanation. She might be playfully labeled one of the guys. A label that simultaneously compliments her for breaking a norm while reinforcing that the norm exists. Now the man orders the grilled chicken salad. He's almost guaranteed to get some lighthearted ribbing from his male friends. What, you on a diet? Getting ready for swimsuit season? His choice is seen as a deviation from the masculine script of consumption, and it gets called out. This simple, everyday scenario reveals the deep, gendered expectations we have around food, appetite, and self-control. This entire psychological theater is fueled and amplified by the massive industries that profit from it. The marketing is a masterclass in gendered psychology. For women, the weight loss industry sells transformation through diminishment. The language is about shrinking, toning, and cleansing. It's Slim Fast, Weight Watchers, Lean Cuisine. The advertisements are filled with before and after photos that promise a completely new life, a happier you, if you just lose the weight. It's an industry built on the premise that you, as you are right now, are not good enough. Your body is a problem to be solved. For men, the marketing is never about dieting. That word is seen as feminine. Instead, it's about performance, fueling, and building. The products aren't for weight loss. They're for cutting or achieving gains. Think of the brands: Muscle Milk, Body Fortress, Gatorade. The language is active, aggressive, and aspirational. It's not about becoming less. It's about becoming more. More muscle, more power, more dominance. It taps into a primal desire for strength, not a manufactured insecurity about size. The core message is starkly different. For women, the goal is to take up less space in the world. For men, the goal is to take up more. So, the psychological starting line for weight loss is on two completely different planets. A woman often begins her journey burdened by a lifetime of societal judgment, carrying the heavy mental load of self-surveillance and the belief that her worth is tied to the number on the scale. A man often begins his in silence, driven by a newer, more intense pressure to look like a Hollywood action star, but culturally forbidden from speaking about the insecurity that drives him. One journey is often a public performance of self-denial, the other a private crusade for physical dominance. Neither is easy, and both are fraught with their own unique psychological traps. So when that decision is made, when the journey begins, men and women don't just start from a different place biologically. They start on entirely different maps, with different destinations in mind, and a world of voices telling them which way to go. And the routes they take, well, that's where things get even more complicated. Let's talk about the man's route first. In the United States, for a huge number of men, the weight loss journey isn't framed as a journey at all. It's framed as a campaign, a war. The language is aggressive, the methods are direct, and the goal is conquest. The enemy is fat, weakness, and the soft-bodied man he sees in the mirror. The strategy? Brute force. Think about the messaging a man typically receives. It's not about nurturing your body. It's about dominating it. It's go hard or go home. It's no pain, no gain. The gym isn't a wellness center. It's a proving ground, an iron temple where he forges a new self. The soundtrack is heavy metal or high-energy hip-hop, not calming meditation music. Success is measured in quantifiable, almost brutal terms. How much can you bench? How many plates are on the bar? What's your 1-rep max? The numbers on the scale are secondary to the numbers on the weights. The goal isn't just to be smaller. It's to be harder, stronger, more imposing. It's about taking up space but with muscle instead of fat. This mindset translates directly to diet. Male-oriented nutrition in the US is often stripped of all nuance and presented as a simple mechanical equation. Food isn't for pleasure or social connection. It's fuel. It's macros. You have your protein, your carbs, your fats. You need to hit your numbers. The popular diets marketed to men reflect this utilitarian approach. Think about the rise of the carnivore diet, paleo, or hardcore keto. They are primal, aggressive, and heavy on the one thing culturally synonymous with masculinity: meat. A man's diet is a steak, a pile of chicken breasts, a protein shake that tastes vaguely like chalk and chocolate. It's about bulking and cutting, military-esque terms for gaining muscle, and then stripping away the fat to reveal it. There's a reason you don't see a lot of marketing for the dainty quinoa bowl and kale smoothie cleanse for men. It just doesn't fit the script. This script, the warrior script, can be incredibly effective, especially in the beginning. Men's higher muscle mass and testosterone levels give them a head start. Pushing hard and eating a high-protein diet often yields fast, visible results. The fat melts away, the muscles pop, and the positive feedback loop is intoxicating. He feels powerful, capable, and in control. He is winning the war. But what happens when the war stalls? What happens when he injures his shoulder from ego lifting? Or when the extreme diet leaves him depleted and miserable? What happens when the scale stops moving, despite his relentless assault? For many men, there is no plan B. The warrior script has no chapter on self-compassion, on listening to your body, on accepting a plateau. To do so feels like surrender, feels like weakness. The isolation can be profound. Men are culturally conditioned not to talk about their struggles, especially struggles with their own bodies. So he either doubles down, pushing himself toward injury and burnout, or he quits quietly, feeling like a failure, the weight slowly creeping back on, bringing with it a deep sense of shame. He didn't just fail a diet. In his mind, he failed a fundamental test of his own manhood. Now let's navigate the other map. The one handed to almost every woman in America. If the man's route is a military campaign, the woman's is a never-ending high-stakes tightrope walk. The goal isn't conquest, it's perfection. And perfection means shrinking. The language is completely different. It's not about getting jacked or huge. It's about getting toned, lean, sculpted. It's about achieving a dancer's body or a Pilates body. The underlying message is to take up less space. Be smaller, daintier, more graceful. The aggression is turned inward, manifesting as relentless restriction and self-critique. This script sends women to entirely different parts of the gym. While men are encouraged to dominate the free weights section, the loud, grunting, intimidating heart of the gym, women are often implicitly, and sometimes explicitly, pushed to the periphery. To the cardio machines, the treadmills, the ellipticals, the stairmasters, the cardio bunny stereotype exists for a reason. For decades, women were taught that the key to weight loss was to burn calories, often for hours at a time. The other safe zone is the group fitness class. Zumba, bar, yoga. These are communal, structured, and perceived as less intimidating. There's an instructor telling you exactly what to do, removing the guesswork and the fear of being judged for using a machine incorrectly in the male-dominated weights area. And the diet? The woman's dietary map is not a simple equation. It's an impossibly complex labyrinth, filled with dead ends, false prophets, and emotional traps. Food is never just fuel. Every single bite is loaded with moral significance. A salad is good. A cookie is bad. Eating a piece of cake isn't just consuming sugar and fat. It's a cheat, a splurge, an act of guilt that must be atoned for with extra time on the treadmill. The market preys on this. Women are bombarded with an endless cycle of fad diets, each promising a magical solution. Juice cleanses, detox teas, cabbage soup diets, zero-carb, low-fat, intermittent fasting, appetite-suppressing lollipops. The messaging is about purity and control. It's about clean eating and eliminating entire food groups. This creates a deeply fraught relationship with food, where hunger is something to be suppressed and cravings are a sign of weak character. The social pressure is suffocating. A man who orders a big steak and a beer is just a man having dinner. A woman who does the same is often met with raised eyebrows or a backhanded compliment like, "I wish I could eat like you and not worry." Her weight loss journey is a public spectacle. Her friends want to know what diet she's on. Her family comments on her body at holiday gatherings. Her social media feed is a curated minefield of impossibly perfect bodies. What I eat in a day videos and before and after photos that whisper, "You're not trying hard enough." So while the man is fighting a war on a single front, the woman is fighting a multi-front war against her own body, against the food on her plate, and against a relentless tide of social expectation and judgment. Her journey is often slower, more frustrating, and infinitely more psychologically complex. A plateau for her doesn't just feel like a strategic setback. It can feel like a deep, personal failing, confirming the worst fears whispered by a culture that scrutinizes her every curve. These two paths, the man's and the woman's, are not just different. They are almost opposing forces. One is a script of expansion and dominance, the other a script of reduction and refinement. One is about building a fortress of muscle. The other is about carving away imperfections to reveal a delicate statue. And both are deeply flawed, leading millions of Americans down roads that are unsustainable, unhealthy, and emotionally damaging. They are cultural constructs, powerful stories we tell ourselves about what it means to be a man or a woman trying to change their body. But these stories are being told to bodies that have their own, much older stories to tell, stories written in the language of hormones, genetics, and metabolic science. And when the scripts of our culture collide with the reality of our biology, that's when the real battle truly begins. Let's start with the most fundamental difference, the one that sets the stage for everything else. Imagine two elite athletes stepping onto a field. They're both in peak condition, both ready to compete. But one is a heavyweight powerlifter, and the other is a marathon runner. They're both incredible athletes, but their bodies have been optimized for entirely different tasks. This is the most basic way to understand the hormonal difference between men and women when it comes to weight loss. For men, the dominant hormonal player is testosterone. Think of testosterone as a construction foreman, constantly shouting orders to build and maintain. Its primary job in this context is to build lean muscle mass. Even at rest, a man's body is biologically predisposed to have a higher percentage of muscle than a woman's. And muscle is the engine of your metabolism. Every pound of muscle is like a tiny furnace, burning calories 24/7, even when you're sleeping, even when you're binge-watching your favorite show. So, from the starting line, the average man has a bigger, more powerful metabolic engine. It's like starting a road trip with a V8 engine, while the woman next to him has a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder. When both drivers press the gas pedal, meaning they start a diet and exercise plan, the V8 is naturally going to burn through more fuel faster. This is why you so often hear stories of a couple starting a diet together, and in the first month he drops 15 pounds while she, doing the exact same things, loses 4. It's not magic and it's not unfair. It's metabolic math, dictated by testosterone. This hormonal directive also influences where men store fat. Testosterone tends to encourage fat storage in the abdominal area, what we call visceral fat. This is the dangerous beer belly fat that wraps around your internal organs. But here's the paradox. While it's more dangerous for your health, it's also more metabolically active. It's like cash you keep in your pocket, readily available and easy to spend. When a man starts burning more calories than he eats, his body readily taps into these visceral fat stores. The result is a noticeable, rapid reduction in waist size, which is incredibly motivating. Now let's look at the woman's side of the field. Her hormonal reality is a complex and beautiful dance, orchestrated primarily by estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is not a construction foreman. She is a master architect and a preservationist. Her primary biological directive, honed over hundreds of thousands of years, is not building muscle for short bursts of power, but ensuring survival and the potential for creating life. To do this, she needs energy reserves. Long-term, reliable, protected energy reserves. And so, estrogen directs fat storage to different locations: the hips, the thighs, and the buttocks. This is primarily subcutaneous fat, which sits just under the skin. Unlike the visceral fat in men, this fat isn't readily available cash. Think of it as a trust fund, or gold bars locked in a high-security vault. The body does not want to spend it. It's holding onto it for a potential future marathon event, pregnancy and breastfeeding. This fat is biologically precious, and the body has intricate systems in place to protect it. So when a woman starts her weight loss journey, she's not just fighting her appetite. She's fighting the most ancient, powerful survival instinct encoded in her DNA. Her body is literally designed to resist losing this specific fat. But the complexity doesn't stop there. While a man's hormonal profile is relatively stable day to day, a woman's is a dynamic, cyclical symphony that changes every single week. The menstrual cycle isn't just a monthly event. It's a 28-day hormonal roller coaster that profoundly impacts metabolism, appetite, energy, and water retention. Let's break it down. In the first half of the cycle, the follicular phase, estrogen is rising. Women often feel their best here. More energy, a more stable mood, and better insulin sensitivity, which means their bodies are more efficient at using carbohydrates for energy instead of storing them as fat. This is the optimal time for intense workouts and stricter eating. But then, after ovulation, the luteal phase begins. Progesterone rises, and this changes everything. Progesterone can increase appetite and trigger cravings. That sudden, seemingly uncontrollable urge for chocolate or salty chips a week before your period. That's not a failure of willpower. It's a biological signal. Your body's core temperature slightly increases, meaning you're actually burning slightly more calories at rest, and your body is signaling you to eat more to compensate. At the same time, serotonin levels, the feel-good neurotransmitter, can dip, which also drives cravings for carb-rich comfort foods as a way to get a quick mood boost. On top of the cravings, progesterone causes water retention. This is one of the most psychologically brutal parts of the female weight loss journey. A woman can be doing everything perfectly, eating in a deficit, exercising, getting enough sleep, but the number on the scale can stay the same or even go up for 2 weeks straight simply because her body is holding on to more water. For a man, the scale is a reliable, rewarding feedback tool. For a woman, it can be a source of constant confusion and despair. She's fighting against cravings, she's pushing through lower energy levels, and her primary tool for measuring progress is lying to her. This leads to two completely different patterns of weight loss. Men often experience a linear, predictable drop. Week 1, 3 pounds. Week 2, 2 pounds. Week 3, 2.5 pounds. It's a straight line down, reinforcing their efforts and boosting their motivation. Women, on the other hand, often experience what's known as the whoosh effect. It's a pattern of stair steps. For 3 weeks, the scale might not budge, or it might even creep up. Feels like hitting a plateau. It's demoralizing. She questions everything. Is my diet wrong? Am I not working out hard enough? Is my body broken? And then, almost overnight, often as her period begins and progesterone levels fall, her body releases all that retained water, and she drops 3 or 4 pounds in a single day. The whoosh. Understanding this is not just a piece of trivia, it's a paradigm shift. It transforms the experience from one of personal failure to one of biological understanding. It allows a woman to trust the process, even when the scale is telling her it's not working. But so many don't know this. They just see their male partner shedding pounds effortlessly while they struggle for every ounce, their own body seemingly working against them every step of the way. So, we have two different hormonal blueprints, two different sets of biological directives. One is optimized for power and lean mass, the other for endurance and energy preservation. But this hormonal story is only chapter 1. Because these hormones don't just influence fat, they are the master architects of the very machinery that burns it, our muscles and our metabolism. And the differences there are even more staggering. Let's start with the raw materials. On average, from birth, men are simply built with more skeletal muscle mass. We're not talking about bodybuilders here. We're talking about the average guy on the street compared to the average woman. The difference is significant, often cited as men having up to 40% more total muscle mass, and a staggering 70 to 80% more muscle mass in the upper body. And the reason for this comes down to one key player we've already met: testosterone. Think of testosterone as the world's most effective construction foreman for muscle tissue. It's an anabolic steroid, and anabolic literally means to build up. From puberty onward, men are flooded with 10 to 20 times more of this hormone than women are. Every single day, this foreman is on the job site of the male body, constantly signaling for muscle protein synthesis, the process of repairing and building new muscle fibers. It's like having a construction crew on retainer 24/7, ready to build at a moment's notice. For women, the primary foreman is estrogen. And while estrogen is a powerhouse hormone with 1,000 critical jobs, from bone health to brain function, large-scale muscle construction just isn't on its main agenda. It's a brilliant architect and manager, but it's not a bodybuilder. This means that from a purely hormonal standpoint, men start the race with a biological tailwind for building and maintaining the very tissue that burns the most calories. And that is the absolute crux of the matter. Muscle is the engine of your metabolism. Fat is just the fuel tank. The bigger and more powerful your engine, the more fuel you burn, even when you're just sitting in park. This is what scientists call your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. It's the number of calories your body burns every day just to keep the lights on, to power your brain, keep your heart beating, and your lungs breathing. And the single biggest contributor to your BMR is your lean muscle mass. Imagine two furnaces, both tasked with heating a house. One furnace is a massive industrial unit. The other is a smaller, high-efficiency model. The industrial unit, just by virtue of its size and power, is going to burn through a pile of coal much faster, even on its lowest setting. The male body, with its greater muscle mass, is that industrial furnace. It has a higher metabolic idle speed. This means that if an average man and an average woman, identical in height and weight, were to lie in bed all day doing absolutely nothing, the man would burn more calories. It's not fair, it's not unfair, it's just physics and biology. This is the silent, invisible gap that causes so much frustration. It's why a husband and wife can decide to get healthy together, eat the exact same meals, do the exact same workouts, and 2 months later he's dropped 20 pounds and she's painstakingly lost 6. Feels like a betrayal. Feels like you're doing something wrong. But you're not. You're just working with a different furnace. Now let's take this out of the living room and into the gym. When a man and a woman both start a strength training program, that testosterone difference kicks into high gear. The man's body responds to the stress of lifting weights with an aggressive, supercharged muscle-building response. The foreman sees the demand and immediately puts the crew to work, often resulting in faster, more visible gains in muscle size or hypertrophy. For a woman, the process is just as important, but the response is different. Her body absolutely gets stronger. She builds dense, powerful, and incredibly capable muscle. But the hormonal signal to get bigger is much quieter. It takes immense dedication and consistency for a woman to build the same amount of visible muscle as a man, which is why the myth that lifting weights makes women bulky is so profoundly untrue. It's biologically very, very difficult. This difference in response leads to another metabolic advantage for men: the afterburn effect. You may have heard of this. The scientific term is excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, or EPOC. It's a fancy way of saying that after an intense workout, your body doesn't just immediately return to its resting state. Your metabolism stays elevated for hours, sometimes even a full day, as your body works to repair muscle, replenish energy stores, and return to normal. It's burning extra calories long after you've left the gym. Well, what kind of exercise creates the biggest afterburn? High-intensity exercise and strength training that engages large muscle groups. Because men typically have more muscle to work with and can often lift heavier weight relative to their starting point, they can generate a more significant metabolic disturbance, leading to a larger and longer-lasting afterburn. It's a compounding effect. They start with a bigger engine, the workout makes that engine run hotter, and it stays hot for longer afterward, burning even more fuel. But here's where the story gets more nuanced, because the female body is anything but a lesser version. It's a masterpiece of efficiency and endurance. While testosterone primes men for power and muscle growth, estrogen gives women a different kind of metabolic superpower. Research has shown that during long-duration submaximal exercise, think jogging, cycling, or a long hike, women's bodies are significantly better at burning fat for fuel. Men's bodies, in contrast, tend to rely more heavily on carbohydrates, which are a faster but more limited source of energy. So while the man might be the sprinter, burning through his glycogen stores quickly, the woman is the marathoner. Her body is metabolically thriftier, expertly tapping into her body's abundant fat reserves to preserve her limited carb stores. This makes her more fatigue-resistant over the long haul. It's an evolutionary advantage, likely designed to preserve energy for survival and child-rearing. It's brilliant, but in the context of modern weight loss, where the goal is often to burn through that stored fat as quickly as possible, this very efficiency can feel like a frustrating obstacle. So we have this complex picture emerging. Men are built for power, with a metabolic engine primed for burning calories and building muscle quickly. This gives them a distinct, measurable advantage in the rate of weight loss, especially at the beginning. Women are built for endurance, with a highly efficient metabolic system designed to conserve energy and utilize fat strategically. This isn't a story of good versus bad biology. It's a story of different operating systems. But understanding your operating system is the first step to making it work for you. The frustration and despair that so many women in the US feel when they compare their progress to the men in their lives isn't a sign of their failure. It's a sign that they've been handed a completely different playbook, a different set of tools, and often no instruction manual. They're trying to run marathon software on sprinter hardware. So, if men have the advantage in muscle and metabolism, does that mean weight loss is just fundamentally easier for them? Is that the end of the story? Not even close. Because we've only been looking at the calories outside of the equation. We haven't talked about calories in. And when it comes to the intricate dance of appetite, cravings, and the very hormones that tell our brains we're hungry or full, the biological playing field begins to tilt in a completely different, and for many men, a much more challenging direction. The battle isn't just fought in the gym, it's fought in the brain, and that's where things get truly complicated. This complication isn't just about willpower or cravings, it's about the stories we're told, and the stories we tell ourselves about what our bodies are supposed to be. And in the United States, the stories told to men and women are fundamentally, drastically different. From the moment we're old enough to understand television commercials, the programming begins. For women, the narrative is one of shrinking. Be smaller, be leaner, take up less space. The cultural pressure is a constant, low-grade hum that can easily escalate into a deafening roar. It's in magazines at the checkout counter promising to help you lose 10 pounds by Friday. It's in the impossibly slender mannequins in store windows. It's in the casual conversation in the office break room about the latest juice cleanse or a new spin class. This creates a relationship with food that is, for many women, incredibly complex and often fraught with guilt. Every meal can become a negotiation, every dessert a potential failure. The very act of dieting is normalized, a rite of passage. A woman talking about her weight loss struggles is met with nods of understanding, shared stories, and communal support. It's an accepted, open part of the female experience. This open dialogue, while born from immense pressure, does provide an outlet. Support groups, online forums, and friendships are built around this shared struggle. There's a language for it, a community, but the psychological weight of constantly striving for an often unattainable ideal of thinness is immense. It can lead to a lifetime of yo-yo dieting, a damaged metabolism, and a perpetual feeling of not being good enough. The enemy is clear: fat. The goal is clear: be less. Now let's flip the coin and look at the story told to men. The narrative isn't about shrinking. It's about expanding. Be bigger, be stronger, be more powerful. The ideal male form in American culture is one of presence and muscle. Think of superheroes, action stars, professional athletes. They are large, defined, and dominant. A man who wants to lose weight is navigating a far more confusing and isolating landscape. The very word diet can feel emasculating. It's associated with the female world of calorie counting and salad. Instead, men are encouraged to get in shape, bulk up, or get ripped. The focus is on addition, adding muscle, rather than subtraction. This leads to a profound psychological barrier. For a man to admit he needs to lose weight can feel like admitting a failure of masculinity. It can feel like he's weak, undisciplined, or has let himself go. So, instead of seeking support, he often goes it alone. He won't join a Weight Watchers meeting because he'll likely be the only man in the room. He's less likely to talk to his friends about his body image issues over a beer, because that level of vulnerability is often discouraged in male friendships. The struggle becomes a secret, a silent battle fought in isolation. This isolation breeds an all-or-nothing mentality. When a man finally decides to act, he often goes to extremes. He's not going to gently modify his diet. He's going to eat nothing but chicken and broccoli for 3 months. He's not going to start by walking. He's going to try and run a marathon with no training. It's a blitzkrieg approach, fueled by a desire to conquer the problem as quickly and decisively as possible. But this approach is rarely sustainable. It leads to burnout, injury, and a spectacular rebound, reinforcing the internal belief that he has failed yet again. And this brings us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of weight loss psychology: emotional eating. The stereotype is a woman on the couch with a pint of ice cream after a bad day. And yes, that happens. But men are emotional eaters too. It just wears a different costume. Consider this scenario. Mark, a 45-year-old manager, has a brutal week at work. He loses a major client and gets chewed out by his boss. On Friday night, he goes to his favorite steakhouse and orders the 24-ounce prime rib, a loaded baked potato, and 3 craft beers. He tells himself, "I earned this. I deserve a reward for surviving this hellish week." He is using high-calorie, comforting food to medicate his stress and anxiety. Now, consider his wife, Sarah. She has a similarly stressful week. She comes home on Friday, orders a large pizza, and eats half of it while watching a movie. She tells herself, "I'm so stressed out, I can't help it. I'm such an emotional eater." She feels a wave of guilt and shame afterward. The underlying behavior is identical, using food as a coping mechanism for negative emotions. But the narrative is completely different. Mark frames his behavior as a reward, a masculine rite of passage. Sarah frames hers as a failure of control, a feminine weakness. Mark feels justified, Sarah feels guilty. This single difference in internal monologue, shaped by decades of societal conditioning, has a massive impact on their ability to create a healthy, sustainable relationship with food. For Mark to solve his problem, he first has to admit that his reward is actually a crutch. For many men, that is a truth too difficult to face. This extends to how men and women even define success. For many women, the ultimate arbiter of success is the number on the scale. That single number can dictate her mood for the entire day. It's a tangible measure of her progress in the quest to become smaller. For men, the scale is often secondary. Success is measured in performance. Can I lift more than I could last month? Can I run a faster mile? Can I play with my kids without getting winded? Or it's measured by a different physical marker, like the fit of a suit or, increasingly, the visibility of their abs. This focus on performance can be healthier, but it can also mask the problem. A man might be 40 pounds overweight with dangerously high blood pressure, but if he can still bench press a decent amount, he might convince himself he's healthy. He's strong, so he must be fine. The health metrics get ignored in favor of a metric of strength, until a doctor's visit delivers a sobering wake-up call. The entire psychological and social architecture surrounding weight loss is built on a gendered foundation. Women are encouraged to be communal, but are haunted by a goal of less. Men are encouraged to be strong, but are isolated by a stigma against weakness. One is a public struggle, the other a private war. And while these vastly different psychological battles are being waged on the surface, their bodies are also fighting a silent, invisible conflict dictated by a powerful chemical language that most of us don't even know exists. I'm talking about hormones. Hormones are the body's chemical messengers. They control everything from your mood to your sleep to your metabolism. And when it comes to weight loss, the hormonal landscapes of men and women are as different as night and day. It's the single biggest biological reason why a husband and wife can eat the exact same meals, do the exact same workouts, and see wildly different results on the scale. Let's start with men. The dominant male sex hormone is, of course, testosterone. And in the game of weight loss, testosterone is like having a stacked deck. Its primary superpower is its role in building and maintaining lean muscle mass. Muscle is metabolically active tissue. Think of it like the engine of your car. The bigger the engine, the more fuel it burns, even when it's just idling at a stoplight. Because men naturally have more testosterone, they naturally have more muscle mass. This gives them a higher basal metabolic rate, or BMR. It means that, on average, a man's body burns more calories at rest than a woman's body of the same weight. He has a bigger, more fuel-hungry engine running 24/7. This is the physiological cheat code that often allows men to see faster results in the beginning of a weight loss journey. They have a built-in calorie-burning advantage from the start. Testosterone also dictates where men store fat. They are predisposed to storing it as visceral fat, which accumulates deep within the abdominal cavity, wrapping around vital organs. This is the classic beer belly, or apple shape. Now, this type of fat is incredibly dangerous for your health, linked to heart disease and type 2 diabetes. But here's the paradox. It's also more metabolically active. It's easier for the body to access and burn for energy compared to other types of fat. So when a man starts dieting and exercising, his body can tap into these visceral fat stores relatively quickly, leading to noticeable changes in his waistline and a faster drop on the scale. Now let's contrast that with the female hormonal story, which isn't a straightforward monologue. It's a complex, cyclical opera with a cast of powerful characters. The star of the show is estrogen. For decades, estrogen has been misunderstood, often blamed for weight gain. But its role is far more nuanced. Estrogen is a survival hormone, fundamentally designed to support fertility and childbirth. One of its primary jobs is to direct fat storage to specific areas: the hips, thighs, and buttocks. This is known as subcutaneous fat. Think of this fat as a biological savings account. It's a reserve of energy, strategically placed to fuel a potential pregnancy and breastfeeding. It's a brilliant evolutionary design for preserving the species. But for the modern American woman trying to fit into her genes, it's a source of immense frustration. Because this subcutaneous fat, unlike the visceral fat in men, is incredibly stubborn. It's designed to be a long-term energy store, so the body is very reluctant to let it go. It has fewer blood vessels and is less metabolically active, making it much harder to burn off. But the complexity doesn't stop there. A woman's entire hormonal system operates on a roughly 28-day cycle, the menstrual cycle, which creates a constantly shifting internal environment that profoundly impacts appetite, energy, and metabolism. For about 2 weeks during the follicular phase, estrogen is the dominant hormone. During this time, women are often more insulin sensitive, meaning their bodies are better at using carbohydrates for energy. They might feel more energetic, stronger in the gym, and have better control over their appetite. This is the easy part of the month. Then, after ovulation, the luteal phase begins. Progesterone rises and takes center stage. And this is where things get tough. Progesterone's job is to prepare the body for a potential pregnancy, and it does this by cranking up the appetite. It's a primal signal to store energy. This is not a failure of willpower. It's a powerful biological drive. It's why intense cravings for high-fat, high-sugar, high-calorie foods can feel completely overwhelming in the week or two before a period. Furthermore, progesterone can interfere with mood-regulating neurotransmitters like serotonin, which can trigger emotional eating as a way to self-soothe. And to add insult to injury, it causes water retention. A woman can be doing everything right, eating perfectly, exercising consistently, and see the number on the scale jump up by 3, 4, even 5 pounds overnight. For someone fighting a difficult psychological battle with their weight, that can be absolutely soul-crushing. This monthly hormonal roller coaster also affects the two most important hunger-regulating hormones in the body, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is the go hormone. It's secreted by your stomach and travels to your brain to signal, "I'm hungry, it's time to eat." Leptin is the stop hormone. It's released by your fat cells and tells your brain, "I'm full, you can stop eating now." Some studies suggest that during weight loss, women experience a larger drop in leptin and are more sensitive to ghrelin signals than men. This means that on the exact same calorie deficit, a woman may literally feel hungrier and less satisfied than her male counterpart. During that premenstrual luteal phase, this effect is amplified. Her body is screaming for more calories while being less able to recognize when it's full. It's a perfect storm for overeating, driven by a chemical reality, not a character flaw. Then there's the great equalizer, stress. Both men and women in our fast-paced American society deal with chronic stress. But how it manifests and how we cope with it can be different. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol. This is our fight or flight hormone, designed to save us from an immediate threat. But in the modern world, the threats aren't tigers. They're work deadlines, financial worries, and traffic jams. The stress is chronic, and so is the cortisol drip. High levels of cortisol signal to your body to store energy, specifically as that dangerous visceral belly fat. It also revs up your appetite for calorie-dense comfort foods. For women who often juggle immense societal and domestic pressures and report higher levels of chronic stress, this can create a devastating feedback loop. You're stressed about your weight, which raises cortisol, which makes it harder to lose weight and increases cravings, which makes you more stressed. Finally, this hormonal story evolves dramatically as we age. For men, around the age of 40, testosterone levels begin a slow, gradual decline. This process, sometimes called andropause, leads to a loss of that metabolically active muscle mass. Their BMR drops. The engine gets smaller. This is a key reason why many men find it much easier to gain weight, particularly around their midsection, in their 40s and 50s. The dad bod isn't just about a change in lifestyle. It's a fundamental hormonal shift. For women, the change is not a gentle slope. It's a cliff. Perimenopause and menopause bring a dramatic crash in estrogen production. This hormonal earthquake completely rewrites the rules of fat storage. The body stops prioritizing fat on the hips and thighs and begins storing it as visceral fat in the abdomen, just like a man. This is why a woman's entire body shape can change after menopause, even if her weight stays the same. Her metabolic rate plummets, making weight gain feel almost inevitable. On top of that, symptoms like sleep disturbances, hot flashes, and mood swings make sticking to a healthy diet and exercise routine feel like climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops. Poor sleep alone is a metabolic disaster, throwing ghrelin and leptin out of whack and sending cortisol levels soaring. So, you see, it's not just about calories in and calories out. It's about navigating a complex, ever-changing hormonal sea. Men are sailing with a powerful testosterone tailwind for much of their lives, though they face their own storms with visceral fat and aging. Women are navigating a cyclical tide that changes week to week, before a menopausal tsunami completely alters the map. Understanding this invisible battle is the first step. It's not about making excuses. It's about acknowledging the biological reality. So while men and women are fighting these profoundly different hormonal wars inside their bodies, how does this translate to the outside? How does it change the way they build muscle, burn fat, and physically transform in the gym? The answer might change the way you work out forever. Let's start with the most common battlefield, the weight room. For decades, a powerful myth has dominated the fitness world. A myth that has shaped how millions of men and women approach exercise. It's the idea that men build muscle with almost accidental ease, while women have to fight tooth and nail for every ounce, all while living in fear of suddenly looking bulky. Like most myths, there's a kernel of truth wrapped in a universe of misunderstanding. The truth is, men have a biological head start, a massive one. That head start is called testosterone. On average, men have 7 to 8 times more testosterone than women. Think of testosterone as the construction foreman for building muscle. After you work out, you create tiny micro-tears in your muscle fibers. Testosterone is the guy who shows up with the blueprints, the crew, and the highest quality materials, shouting orders to rebuild everything bigger and stronger than before, and to do it fast. A woman's body has a foreman too, but he's working with a smaller crew and a more modest budget. He gets the job done, but the scale and speed of the project are just different. This is why, in absolute terms, men can build more muscle mass and raw strength than women. It's a simple biological fact. But here is where the myth crumbles. When you look at muscle growth relative to starting size, the story changes dramatically. A landmark study from McMaster University took groups of young men and women, put them on the exact same full-body strength training program, and tracked their progress. The results were stunning. On a percentage basis, the women's muscles grew just as much, and in some cases even more, than the men's. A 15% increase in muscle is a 15% increase in muscle. Whether you started with 10 pounds of it or 20, the engine for growth works the same. Men just start with a bigger engine. And that fear of getting bulky? For the vast majority of women, it's one of the most unfounded fears in all of health and fitness. Because of their hormonal profile, specifically the lower testosterone, it is biologically next to impossible for most women to build the massive, bulky physique of a male bodybuilder. The women you see on bodybuilding stages who do have that level of muscularity have dedicated their entire lives, with monastic discipline and often pharmaceutical assistance, to achieve that look. For the average woman, lifting heavy weights won't make you bulky. It will make you strong. It will make you toned. It will make you a metabolic powerhouse. That toned look so many people desire isn't a magical state achieved by lifting tiny pink dumbbells for 100 reps. It is simply the visual result of having solid, healthy muscle underneath a layer of body fat that's thin enough to see its shape. You build the muscle by lifting heavy, and you reveal it by managing your diet. Now, let's talk about burning fat, because the differences here are even more fascinating. When it comes to exercise, men and women's bodies are like two different types of high-performance cars. A man's body is like a drag racer. It's built for explosive, short bursts of power. Thanks to having more fast-twitch muscle fibers and a higher resting metabolic rate, men excel at high-intensity activities. When a man does a brutal session of sprints or heavy lifting, he burns a ton of calories. But the real magic happens after the workout. He experiences a significantly greater afterburn effect, technically known as EPOC, or excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. His metabolism stays revved up, torching extra calories for hours, sometimes even a full day, after he's left the gym. His body is a furnace that stays hot long after the fire is out. A woman's body, on the other hand, is like a world-class endurance rally car. It's built for efficiency and long-haul performance. This is an evolutionary masterpiece. A woman's body is hormonally hardwired to be better at preserving energy and utilizing fat as its primary fuel source during exercise. While the man's drag racer is burning through its high-octane glycogen stores in a flash, the woman's rally car is efficiently sipping from its massive fat reserve fuel tank. This is why women often have a natural advantage in endurance sports. Their bodies are incredibly smart, designed to sustain energy over the long term. A trait likely honed over millennia to support pregnancy and child-rearing. So what does this mean for your workout? It means that for decades we've been giving men and women the wrong advice, or at least incomplete advice. Men were told to live in the weight room, and women were pushed onto the treadmills and elliptical machines for hours of fat-burning cardio. The reality is, the optimal strategy for both is a fusion of the two, but with an awareness of their unique biological strengths. For a man, yes, heavy lifting and high-intensity interval training are king. They tap directly into that drag racer physiology, building muscle that boosts resting metabolism and maximizing that precious afterburn effect. But neglecting cardiovascular health is a fatal mistake, literally. Heart disease is the #1 killer of men in the United States. Steady-state cardio isn't just for cutting before a beach vacation. It's non-negotiable for keeping your heart, the most important muscle in your body, strong and healthy. For a woman, the need for heavy, compound strength training is even more critical. And it's the piece of the puzzle that has been tragically missing for generations. Lifting heavy does more than build lean muscle and boost metabolism. It's one of the single best things a woman can do to build bone density and fight off osteoporosis later in life. But here's the game-changing variable that almost no one talks about: the menstrual cycle. A woman's hormonal landscape isn't a flat line like a man's. It's a dynamic 28-day wave. Her energy, strength, recovery, and even her metabolism can shift dramatically depending on where she is in her cycle. In the first half, the follicular phase, as estrogen rises, she might feel stronger, more energetic, and recover faster. This is the time to push for personal records, go for that extra set, and really embrace high-intensity work. But in the second half, the luteal phase, as progesterone takes over, her body temperature rises, she retains more water, and she might feel more fatigued. This isn't the time to give up. It's the time to be smart. This is the time to focus on technique, mobility, or switch to that steady-state cardio her body is so good at, tapping into fat stores for fuel. Working with her cycle instead of fighting against it is the difference between sustainable progress and frustrating burnout. This even extends to injuries. A woman's anatomy, for instance, often results in a wider Q angle, the angle from the hip to the knee. This can place more stress on the knee joint, increasing the risk for certain injuries like ACL tears. For men, injuries are often a product of ego, loading the bar with too much weight, sacrificing form for one more rep, and skipping the boring mobility and flexibility work that prevents back pain and shoulder impingements. For men, the biggest risk is often their own pride. For women, it's a lack of understanding of how their unique physiology and anatomy impact their movement. So while on the surface, a man and a woman could be doing the exact same workout, squats, deadlifts, presses, and sprints, the internal experience and the optimal long-term strategy are profoundly different. He has the advantage in raw power and afterburn. She has the advantage in endurance and fuel efficiency. His path to success is paved with consistent, linear progression and checking his ego at the door. Her path is a dynamic dance with her own biology, leveraging her hormonal shifts as a superpower rather than a hindrance. We've dissected the hormones. We've broken down the physical battle in the gym. But all of this, the diet, the exercise, the biology, is ultimately controlled by one thing: the 3-pound universe between your ears. The physical challenges are real, but they are nothing compared to the mental war. And it is in the arena of psychology, societal pressure, and mindset where the differences between men and women aren't just a gap. They are a chasm. This is where the fight for lasting change is truly won or lost. For men, the internal monologue often starts as a tactical problem. Okay, I've gained 20 pounds. It's affecting my energy. My doctor said my blood pressure is up. I need a plan. It's a project. A problem to be solved with logic and discipline. It's about performance. Fix the machine. For women, it often begins from a place of deep emotional pain. A reflection in a store window that steals her breath. A tagged photo on social media that triggers a wave of shame. A comment maybe carelessly thrown by a loved one that lands like a punch to the gut. It's not a project. It's a referendum on her worth. And from that very first moment, she is already carrying a weight that can't be measured on any scale. This is the chasm, and it has been carved by decades of relentless, targeted societal pressure. Let's be brutally honest about the American cultural landscape. From a young age, girls are handed a rulebook. It's an invisible, yet ironclad manuscript on how to exist in the world. And rule number 1, printed in bold, capital letters, is: your body is a project to be perfected, and its value is determined by its proximity to an ever-changing, impossible ideal. In the 90s, it was Kate Moss heroin chic, a gaunt, almost fragile look. In the 2000s, it was the era of the flat stomach and the Victoria's Secret angel. Today, it's the slim, thick, Kardashian-esque physique. A tiny waist, a flat stomach, but also a large butt and hips. An ideal that is, for 99% of the population, biologically impossible without surgical intervention. This isn't just a moving target. It's a psychological weapon. It is designed to keep women in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction, a constant feeling of not good enough. This pressure morphs the act of eating into a moral dilemma. A salad is good. A piece of cake is bad. When a woman eats the salad, she is virtuous, disciplined, worthy. When she eats the cake, she isn't just consuming sugar and fat. She is failing. She is cheating. She is being bad. This language, this moral judgment tied to food, creates a prison of guilt and shame. Every meal becomes a test of character. Every craving is a potential character flaw. This immense pressure creates the perfect storm for emotional eating. When you're taught that your body is the source of your problems, and you feel the constant stress of not measuring up, where do you turn for comfort? Often it's food. Food doesn't judge. Food is reliable. A pint of ice cream after a long, stressful day provides a predictable, neurochemical hit of dopamine and comfort. It becomes a coping mechanism for the very anxiety created by the obsession with body image. And thus the cycle begins. The shame of her body leads to emotional eating, which leads to weight gain, which leads to more shame. It is a devastating, self-perpetuating trap. Now let's turn to men. The cultural messaging is different, but it is no less damaging. A man's body isn't typically seen as an ornament to be perfected in the same way. Instead, it's viewed as a tool, a machine for performance. The pressure isn't necessarily to be thin, but to be strong, capable, big, or lean. The ideal is the action hero, the professional athlete. Notice the theme? It's about power and utility. A man letting himself go is seen not as an aesthetic failure, but as a failure of discipline, a failure of his own internal command. It suggests weakness, laziness, a loss of control, all things that directly contradict the traditional script of American masculinity. The dad bod may have had a moment of cultural acceptance, but it's a precarious one. It walks a fine line between comfortably settled and has given up. This creates a profound stigma around the very act of trying to lose weight. Dieting, calorie counting, being overly concerned with the nutritional content of food, these have long been coded as feminine activities. A man at a barbecue ordering a salad instead of a burger might face lighthearted jabs from his friends, but those jabs carry a message. You're not one of us. You're breaking the code. This fear of being seen as less masculine can drive a man's struggle underground. He might try crash diets in secret, or adopt an extreme all-or-nothing workout regimen that is punishing and unsustainable, because that feels more acceptably masculine than a measured long-term approach. And while women may turn to food for emotional comfort, men are often socialized to turn to other things to numb their feelings of inadequacy. Alcohol is a huge one. The work hard, play hard culture often involves heavy drinking. A few beers with the guys after work is a standard social ritual, but it's a ritual loaded with hundreds, if not thousands, of empty calories that directly contribute to visceral fat, the dangerous fat around the organs that gives men the classic beer belly. For many men, cutting back on alcohol feels like cutting back on their social life, and a core part of their identity. These external pressures forge two very different internal mindsets. For many women, the mindset is one of perfectionism and self-flagellation. The thought process is, I ate one cookie, the entire day is ruined, I might as well eat the whole box. I'll start again on Monday. This all-or-nothing thinking is a direct result of framing the journey as a moral test. One sin invalidates all previous virtue. There is no room for error, no room for humanity. It's a tightrope walk, and any wobble feels like a catastrophic fall. For many men, the mindset is that of a frustrated engineer. The plan is logical. Eat less, move more. When the scale doesn't move as fast as the plan dictates, the reaction isn't typically shame but frustration. This isn't working. The plan is flawed. This is a waste of time. The project is then abandoned not because he sees himself as a moral failure, but because the strategy failed to produce the expected results. He tried to fix the machine is being stubborn, so he shelves the project. The emotional fallout comes later, in the quiet moments when he feels his energy is low or he can't keep up with his kids. But the initial trigger for quitting is often pragmatic frustration rather than emotional shame. So, how do we bridge this chasm? How do we win a war that is being fought on two completely different fronts? First, we must have empathy born from understanding. We have to acknowledge that the journey is not the same. A man telling a woman to just be more disciplined is like telling someone in a hurricane to just hold an umbrella. He is completely ignoring the storm of psychological and societal forces she is battling. A woman being confused by her partner's all-or-nothing approach to fitness is missing the deep-seated masculine pressure to perform and conquer, rather than to nurture and sustain. We have to see and respect the invisible battles the other is fighting. Second, and this is the great unifier, we must shift the entire goal. For both men and women, the cultural obsession with aesthetics is the poison. The antidote is to reframe the entire endeavor from being about weight loss to being about health gain. Stop trying to lose something. Start trying to gain something. Gain energy. Gain strength. Gain the ability to run around with your kids without getting winded. Gain 10 more healthy years on your life to spend with the people you love. When the goal shifts from fitting into a smaller pair of jeans to being able to climb a mountain, literally or metaphorically, everything changes. Food is no longer good or bad. It is fuel. Exercise is no longer punishment for what you ate. It is a celebration of what your body can do. This reframe strips away the shame for women and bypasses the performance-based frustration for men. It becomes a journey of self-respect, not self-improvement. Finally, the most powerful weapon in this fight, for everyone, is self-compassion. You must change the voice in your head from a critic to a coach. For a woman, that means when you eat the cookie, the voice says, "Okay, you enjoyed that." It changes nothing. What's our next nutritious meal? Not, "You're a failure." For a man, that means when the scale doesn't move for a week, the voice says, "All right, let's analyze the data. What can we tweak?" This is a process of discovery. Not, "This is pointless." Self-compassion is the permission to be human. It's the understanding that progress is not a straight line. It is a messy, winding path with setbacks and victories, and that is okay. The challenges for men and women in America are profoundly different. The biological realities are just the foothills. The true mountains are the ones built by our culture, and the ones we build in our own minds. But the path to the summit, while different for each person, is guided by the same stars. Empathy for others, a focus on true health over superficial aesthetics, and relentless compassion for yourself. The real victory isn't a number on a scale. It's the peace that comes from ending the war with your own body and finally being on the same team.